Welcome back, folks, to the Shankly session, the Liverpool podcast we bring you each and every week as part of our offering on the upper tier out there on YouTube. This is our first live Shankly sessions, the first one of the new season. The new season is upon us. The excitement is building, albeit tempered with a little bit of concern that we'll talk about in a while on the episode. But certainly, we're going to bring you this Fulham preview. That's what we're here for tonight. We'll also be doing a match reaction tomorrow afternoon after the game. But safe to say, an interesting fixture for us to start with: Jurgen Klopp versus Marco Silva. Both men have head-to-heads in this. With not bad results for Marco Silva, in fairness. They've played 5 games head-to-head against each other. Klopp with 2 wins, 2 draws and 1 loss. So certainly Marco Silva kind of has a way of understanding a way of playing against them and has had somewhat mediocre success against them at times. But I would fully expect the Reds tomorrow at lunchtime at Craven Cottage to go out there, do a professional job, put a few goals on the board, clean sheet, get out of there with 3 points and kick off the season. It's going to be a massive season for us. I suppose we should talk about, first of all, the pre-season that we've had before we just get into this starting game. It's kind of been a kind of a haphazard pre-season insofar as like we've sort of performed and stuttered. A lot of the games were kind of weird. The setup of it, did it really deliver what it should, what we wanted? Um, we picked up a number of injuries. You've seen it with Ox, you've seen it with Curtis, you've seen it with Costas, you've seen it with Kanate, even in that Strasbourg game. I don't know what the idea of that Strasbourg game was. I couldn't understand it for the life of me. Um, but yeah, it was certainly an interesting pre-season and something that we learned from it. A couple of players, Mabea stood out and did okay, albeit he was at fault for 1 or 2 goals, but definitely stood out. Really liked his forward thinking and his forward play. His defensive duties lacked somewhat. Um, the boy Bietic stood out greatly in pre-season. Didn't do himself any harm at all. Tyler Morton would have performed well in pre-season, but went out on loan to Blackburn. And I hope that's a decision that we don't regret, because that's where my concern lies at the moment. I think at the back line, I think we're pretty much covered. I think with Joe there and his versatility, Joe Gomez, I think we're okay. I think Costas on the other side, once he's back covering Robbo, we're okay. But we should be okay covered at the back. We're hearing that Ali is back for the game tomorrow, so that's a huge boost for the team as well. Adrian, at times he can be absolutely brilliant, but at times he can be absolutely erratic. Stevie's in the comments here. Just going to bring Stevie into on the comments here. How's it going, mate? Just popping in before I do my watch along for the Crystal Palace versus Arsenal game. Absolutely. Cheers, pal. Really appreciate it. Head over to Stevie's channel. Absolutely. Statman Stubbs, get over there and watch that watch along later on. He's doing absolutely fantastic stuff on the channel over there. I had the privilege of being on it on Wednesday to do a kind of a pre-season review and a Fulham preview and stuff like that. We had a real good show there on Wednesday morning. So head over to Stevie's channel and support it as always. Um, but yeah, when we look at the pre-season, it's been one of those kind of like, I mean, some of the questions that have come up really is one, we don't have a lot of underlining youth there coming through that I think are going to step up and make it. The closest for me would have been Tyler Morton, who's gone off to Blackburn on loan. There's a couple of small little signs there that something might happen with 1 or 2 of them. But overall, the message coming out of pre-season was one: what was really the structure of the pre-season, and what did it want to deliver? And secondly, what it did show is that FSG for the next couple of years are going to be opening up their checkbook big time, and they're going to have to sign players. If I look at the overall squad going into this season, and I've expressed this concern on a number of channels. The big problem for me at the moment is the midfield. I'm just not sure whether that midfield can stand up to a full Premier League season and Champions League season and stay and remain fit. And I'm talking about key players in there, the likes of Fabinho. I'm talking about Thiago. Um, And then we have to kind of decide in those roles in the eight, where does Keita fit into that? This has to be a breakout season for him. Otherwise, I think the ship will have sailed on him. I think Curtis Jones is in the same boat as well. I think he'll have to have a breakout season, or the ship will have sailed on him as well. And there's always been, there's concerns at the moment between Jordan Henderson. Is he really operating in that eight? Does an awful lot of hard graft and a lot of hard work and a lot of shouting and pointing and a lot of organising and stuff like that. But in reality, from an aid in a Liverpool midfield, we need a hell of a lot more than that. So the question is, who goes in there? Do we start looking at Carvalho going in there? Do we look at Harvey Elliott going in there? What are the options and how do we use them in terms of creativity, which is the real problem in the midfield? If we don't have Thiago in there, where is the creativity going to come from? And if you look at the backup on the bench, we tend to have Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, we tend to have James Milner, guys like this. Ox, I don't think he's at that level for Liverpool anymore. I think there you go, another injury again. He's out till October or whatever it is. It says a lot about where his career is at, and I think his career is just going to patter out into insignificance, to be honest. I think for Curtis, he has a big opportunity this year to show what he can do. But again, in that final third and that decision making is where he tends to fall down. His build up play to that point is really, really good. But he's going to have to show something this year as well, or his ship will sail. Keita is going to have to step up massively. Sometimes he tends to be out of games, and when he is out of games, he gets a little bit petulant, a little bit frustrated, and he starts doing silly things like kicking out and giving away free kicks and stuff like that. Just out of pure frustration with his own game. So he has a big season ahead of himself as well. I think Harvey is going to be absolutely fantastic this season. I think Fabio Carvalho is going to be outstanding this season once he gets on that same wavelength as his teammates around him. We've seen it in pre-season. He was so fit and he was so on it, and he was so like the way he moved the ball around and little passes through defenses and stuff like that he was playing, that just his teammates weren't on the same wavelength as him. And then, of course, we have Darwin Núñez coming in. He's going to have big boots to fill as well with Mane going out. So he's going to have his work cut out for him as well. So I think overall, coming out of pre-season, I think we're in reasonable shape if you look at our starting 11, albeit I have concerns about our midfield, and I think we could have done more business in the window. I'm not sure whether we've done enough business that has bridged the gap between ourselves and City last season. And when we look back on last season, yes, it was wonderful to win 2 domestic cups, and it was wonderful to get to a Champions League final. But the reality is, for Liverpool Football Club, you only remember winners. And the man that's on the screen there, Jurgen Klopp, his tenure at Liverpool cannot be defined by one Premier League and one Champions League. It just can't. We have to push and get more and support them, and we need to bring players in. And the problem in looking on, looking further down the line, and you look into next year, and you look at next summer's transfer window, the reality is then we might need 3 midfielders. And I'm just not sure whether FSG is going to have the palate or the taste to dip into the wallet that much to bring in 3 midfielders. I mean, the reality is we might find ourselves in a situation. Ox definitely will be out of the picture. Keita, whether he makes it or not, we're not too sure. Curtis, whether he makes it or not, we're not too sure. Jordan's going to be another year on. James Milner's going to be another year on. And I just think that midfield, Thiago's going to be a year older. Fabinho's going to be a year older. And that midfield next summer, and they promised us this summer that we get a midfielder, and they told us last summer, next summer, and it didn't happen. So we're going into this, and those decisions are what the man on the screen and what the management team at Liverpool are going to have to live and die by with this midfield. So when Thiago comes out, we've seen what happened last season. Once we lose Thiago out of that midfield or Fabinho out of that midfield, you can see that these are the results that creep in, where we drop draws or we drop points and then we fall behind. And this is ultimately what will cost us the league. And we need to be really positive going in. We need to cross our fingers and we need to hope that the likes of Thiago and Fabinho don't get injured. We know it's probably going to happen. And I think they should have went out and signed a midfielder this season. Last season, we chased Yves Bissouma. We were talking about paying 50, 60 million for him, and we didn't get him at 25. We slept on it. Tillemans, we were linked with last season. He's available now at the moment. I don't think they're going to get him for the 25, but if you could bring him in at 30, 35, he would certainly make a huge difference to our midfield. We should be looking at the likes of Nicola Barella. I mean, when I'm talking about bringing midfielders in, I'm not talking about bringing in midfielders from the Championship or something like that and taking a punt. I'm talking about having to bring in, excuse me, 1 second. Still trying to shift this cough. I'm talking about bringing in midfielders that are established midfielders. I'm talking about world class midfielders who are going to step into Liverpool's midfield, understand the system, and be really, really creative. We're talking about the Nicola Barellas of this world and stuff like that. That's the kind of the Jude Bellinghams and stuff like that. And look at what Jude Bellingham is going to cost us. Jude Bellingham is going to cost anywhere from 100 million up, and our FSG going to pay that. And not only pay that, are they going to pony up potentially another 60, 70 million for another two midfielders to pad out that midfield with the change that's going to be required? Morris, thanks for joining us tonight. Morris is in the comments there. He reckons that I'm spot on about the midfield. Morris, I've been beating that drum on the midfield now for so long. It's absolutely ridiculous. Broken promises again from FSG in terms of the midfield. Yes, we went out and bought Darwin Núñez. We replaced Mane and stuff like that. But if you look at our spend is nowhere near where it needed to be, I think, anyway, in terms of bridging the gap to Man City. Remember, we fell short last season. Doesn't matter whether it's a point or whether it's 5 points. We fell short. And at times when we really needed that midfield to step up and contribute, it really, really struggled. So I think that's a real concern at the moment for me, the midfield. And that's one of my only concerns at the moment. And I just think it's a shame for the sake of spending another 30, 40, 50 million and getting in a quality midfielder to put that pressure on the squad. And that squad is going to age another year and potentially may not deliver a league or a Champions League. It's just a real shame that we just don't go out there and spend that money. So that's my concerns at the moment. Anyway, getting on to the game. Anyway, another season where Liverpool kicks off against a promoted side. Um, but when we look at the preview, let's talk about the Fulham side. This Fulham side last season in the Championship was absolutely electric, albeit towards the end of the season they sort of fell away a little bit. I think they finished it up with 2 wins and 7, but they were absolutely brilliant. 90 points, 106 goals. Of that 106 goals, 43 of those goals came from Mitrovic, and he's going to be the real danger tomorrow for Liverpool in terms of set pieces and crosses and stuff like that. He's a strong lad. He can take a shot from distance. We're going to have to be very aware of that. The likes of Fabinho, Van Dijk and guys like that, closing him down very quickly when he pops up with the ball and stuff like that. He's a very dangerous player and he can score really, really good goals. So we're going to have to be aware of that. They've also brought in Palhinha from Sporting Lisbon. He was their kind of coup, their big signing. I think he was somewhere around 17, 18 million and stuff like that. But they've also brought in Solomon and Babu, Bert Leno, who Morris would be familiar with after coming in from Arsenal, and Andreas Pereira from Manchester United. They've all come to Craven Cottage this season. Now, when we think of Craven Cottage is such a small, tight pitch, which doesn't lend itself to Liverpool's style of play, of playing up the wings and stuff like that. And when you think about those diagonal balls that we hit and stuff like that, from the likes of, say, Virgil van Dijk, when you see that cross ball that he hits to Salah and stuff like that, it doesn't really lend itself to that. If you look at Fulham and their pre-season, what they've had, they beat Nice and they beat Estoril, and they had a draw against Villarreal, albeit they finished out the pre-season shipping 5 goals to Benfica. But other than that, they had a pretty strong pre-season. We know the style of play that Marco Silva likes. Fulham tend to attack down the flanks and stuff like that, not dissimilar to ourselves. But I would expect Fulham tomorrow to not show that naivety that they showed last time they were in the Premier League, where they played really, really nice open football, really good football on the eye under Scotty Parker. But they were naive and they were getting caught all the time and they were getting opened up and they were shipping goals and stuff like that. And some would have said, look, you reap what you sow, but you should have got maybe more rewards for the way that you played. But they didn't. And it's because they opened up. And if they open up tomorrow against us, I fully expect us to put a cricket score up against them. I'll come to my predictions later on and stuff like that. As I said with Liverpool, I said, pre-season was a little bit of stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. I didn't really understand the structure of it. Normally, when I look at, and I spoke about this on a podcast on Wednesday morning on Steve's channel. I spoke about how I didn't think the pre-season had a plan building towards the start of the season. It was kind of slap stuff at the wall and see how it went. I didn't really understand if you want Nunes to bed in with his teammates, Luis Diaz and Mo Salah. I didn't understand why he was being put into a front line at times with Harvey Elliott on one side, Carvalho on the other side, and stuff like that. So some of it I just didn't understand. I'm sure the gaffer had a plan for what way it was supposed to go. I'm sure he didn't want it to go the way that it went. In terms of the injuries and stuff that we picked up, because we are starting the season a little light. We know that Ox is going to be out till October. We know that Curtis is probably 4 or 5 weeks away. He was in a boot. We know that Kanate could miss August. We're not too sure. We've had a kind of an update, but that he's a bit away. And other certain little knocks and stuff like that and all. So we're quite light at the moment, squad-wise, albeit our starting 11 is pretty strong. But that would be my concern if we picked up any more injuries. If you go back and you look at last season, it's fantastic winning the domestic cup double and stuff like that. But we have to be disappointed in the way the season finished. We were literally 15 minutes away from winning the Premier League, and then Pep Guardiola made those changes, and the changes that he made were just sensational with Gundogan and Raheem Sterling and stuff like that. And they managed to put up the score that they needed to win the league. But so disappointing for us to be so close again, so close. And this is how I define the Klopp error and stuff like that. We are so close at times, and if we just make that investment, if we just step across that line, just that other one or two players that we need, that would make such a difference in the middle of the season and stuff like that when players start picking up knocks and stuff like that. Why not make that investment? You'll get it back tenfold by winning the league, by winning the Champions League. And I just think it was so disappointing. Those 10 to 15 days at the end of the season between the league and between the Champions League, they were just devastating. And then having to go do that parade, and the parade was sensational, and the fans came out. The loyalty is second to none. But for those players, it must have been absolute heartache to have to go out there, put on a smile and all that kind of stuff, knowing that the big two trophies that we really want to win, that are synonymous with Liverpool Football Club, we want to win leagues, we want to win more Champions League. That's what Liverpool Football Club is about. Yes, winning an FA Cup is brilliant. Yes, winning a Carabao Cup is brilliant, but it's not really where we're at. And it was so disappointing. Let's get into. I mean, the pre-season. If you look at the way the pre-season has gone, just looking at it there, Fulham's pre-season has been 2 wins, a loss, and a draw. Ours has been sort of loss, win, win, loss, win, loss, just all over the place. Obviously, the highlight for us would be the Community Shield. We picked up the Community Shield. First 25 minutes of that game, I thought we were absolutely brilliant. We were at it. We were on it. We were giving Man City a terrible time. We faded in the final 20 minutes of the first half, opening up chances for Man City and stuff like that. Haaland on his day probably could have had a hat-trick, just for a bit of awkwardness and a bit of rustiness. We could see that we were further along in our pre-season than they were. And the second half was kind of back and forth and stuff like that. But we ended up running out winners in the end. Nunes came on, made a huge impression. Obviously won the penalty with the handball, and obviously got the third goal as well. And you could see by the boy the way he celebrated, the top off, the relief oozing out of his body that he had got his goal and stuff like that, and how happy he was, and pointing to the badge on the jersey. And what was really noticeable as well, the whole team rallied around him. The whole subs bench, everything ran down the line to celebrate with him. Jordan Henderson, I've never seen him sprint as fast down the line to celebrate the goal with Nunes and stuff like that. That's how much it meant to them. So there's a real bond forming there and stuff like that. And that's really, really important, especially for the new guys come in. Massive fee. A lot of pressure on the kid, and he's a young lad as well, coming into a new league with that price tag to carry on your back and stuff like that. It's really, really important that he gets off to a really, really good start. In terms of team news, kind of slides a little bit in our favour here. Harry Wilson, a man that we're really familiar with, who had a real good season. He's missing tomorrow. Also, Joe Bryan is missing, and also Chalobah. So there'll be no surprise tomorrow, I think, if they fielded Leno. Although talking to Darren on the show last night, he doesn't think Leno will be thrust in straight away. And Babu was obviously going to come in, and Paulina and Pereira all handed. I'd say they could get competitive debuts. And Babu was a guy that I'd like. I know myself and Darren spoke about him a few times last season and stuff like that. Looks like a proper little player there. For us, in terms of missing, we know Diogo Jota is missing, unfortunately. But great that he has signed a new contract, another 5-year extension, I think it is. So great. Kevin Kelleher, we know, is missing as well. Who we'd always like to be there as our number 2. Ox, we know, is out till October. Kanate picked up a needless injury in a needless game against Strasbourg. I repeat, a needless game. There was just no need for it the day after the league. Costas, we know, is out, and Curtis are also doubtful on the list. Keita should recover in time from his illness to be able to play on Saturday. And we know that Ali is going to be back between the sticks, which will be a huge lift for the team. When Allison is between the sticks, it's just different level. I suppose the real conundrum when we look at the lineup, this is kind of what we're thinking is going to happen at the moment. Ali between the sticks. We're going to have Trent, Matip, Van Dijk, and Robertson. We're going to have Fabinho in the holding role, Henderson and Thiago pulling the strings either side, and then we're going to have Salah, Nunes, and Diaz. That's a formidable team there. And if that's a team that we can hold together for most of the season, with a sprinkling of Harvey Elliott and a sprinkling of Fabio Carvalho and stuff like that, we may be okay. But that's a big maybe okay. In order to have those players fit for that length of time, especially the likes of Thiago and stuff like that. We know he's absolutely world class, the best in his position at times in the world. But whether he can see out, whether he can play 10, 15, 20, 25 games, keep that rhythm going and stuff like that, or pick up a knock. Sometimes when he picks up a knock, he's nearly gone for a month. And just the drop off on the bench when we have to release players from the bench is absolutely massive. And he's the guy who's the most creative for us. For Luis Diaz, I'm expecting a huge season for him. Again, not dissimilar to Curtis. His build-up play and stuff like that, and his speed along the wing and how he opens up defences is really, really cool. It's just that final decision-making as well. He needs to be posting up a few goals and a couple of scores, but he also needs to be thinking about, those slip-slide passes and stuff like that, that cleverness that Mane used to bring us. Can't fault the guy for work rate. He absolutely runs his guts out every game and stuff like that. So I'm expecting a big season from the front three. And when you look at that setup that you see there on the screen, it screams success. So I don't see Fulham being an issue. Let's go through. That's our lineup there for Liverpool. If we look at the lineup there for Fulham, he may trust Leno into goals straight away, and Babu will feature Adara Bio, Ream, Robinson, Palhinha, Reed, Pereira, Kibano, and Mitrovic. Like I said earlier, no major changes there for Marco Silva. He's missing one or two players. Obviously, Harry Wilson is a big loss to them and stuff like that. Obviously, the boy Carvalho, who has come to us, he's going to be a big loss to them. He was huge for them last year in terms of his contribution. But the real danger comes from the likes of Mitrovic, and it will come through the likes of free kicks and corners and set pieces and stuff like that. Also, if he drops deep and picks up the ball, he's going to have to be closed down very quickly, because he can absolutely launch a ball from distance into the top corner. So we're going to have to be fully aware of that. If you look at our team tomorrow, I have it up there with Nunes in the graphic. Now, that could easily be Firmino. Depends on what way Klopp wants to go with this. Does he want Nunes to go in from the start, or does he want to spring him from the bench again like the Community Shield? I think he'll probably want to start him. Darren agreed with me last night that he can't have come on and made that impact in the Community Shield to be then just dropped. But if Fulham decide to dig in and things don't tend to go our way straight out of the bat, if we don't post a score or two on the board and they decide to dig in, we're going to have to figure out a little bit of creativity there going up through the middle, as opposed to constantly just attacking the wings with the same old, and launching corners and balls into the box aimlessly and hopelessly. So yeah, we're going to have to get a little bit clever in terms of opening them up, and that's when you might see a Bobby Firmino who's really, really good at that, but also the boy Carvalho as well, who looks like he can really unlock a defence with nice little slip passes through players and stuff like that. No, so So I wouldn't be surprised, if we're 45, 50, 55 minutes in and we haven't posted the score yet and they're keeping tight with their two banks on the break with Mitrovic, and we have to try and unhinge that. And that's where we have struggled in the past. And that's where we need to show that we can now do this with our cleverness of our play and stuff like that. Don't fully abandon our principles. Sometimes when we abandon our principles and we start shooting from distance and doing all those kind of things, and then really world-class players then suddenly start to look really, really ordinary. So stick to our principles. Understand that we may have to attack up the middle as opposed to just through the flanks to unhinge them. But we'll see how that will go. In terms of a prediction, I'm going with Liverpool 4-0. I'm sticking with that. I did it on Wednesday on Stephen's show. I also predicted it last night 4-0. I think a clean sheet won't be a problem so long as we're aware of the threat of Mitrovic, and I'm sure the boys are. But I hope Nunes is going to post a goal or two tomorrow. I hope Salah's. Look, you can bet your farm on Salah scoring tomorrow. He scores every opening day. Unbelievable. And I would love to see the three front guys get off the mark in whatever combination it is to 4-0. I'm not too fussy about who posts a second goal. But I'd love to see the three boys up front get off the mark tomorrow. It'll be a huge confidence builder for them and stuff like that. Had a quick look at the betting as we always do. Fulham are 9-1, the draw's 9-2, and Liverpool are 2-7 on. So we're really hot favourites here to win this, as rightly so. But as we know, no complacency tomorrow. Got to get out there, lay down a marker. First game of the season, and no messing about, no nerves. Get out there, put these guys to the sword. Show Fulham that they really need to go out and do a bit of business in the market if they're intent on staying in this division. But also really, really important for us to send a message to the likes of City and Chelsea and stuff early that we're very serious about this season. That we're hurting from last season, losing by a point and losing out in the Champions League, and we want to make amends this season. We want to go out there and we want to push ourselves onto that next level again. It might take 95 points to win this league. It might take more. Who knows? But that we're going to be in the middle of that, and we're going to make sure that we're going to have a say in that this season. Another little bet that I brought out, it's even money basically, but if you want to get your betting off to a decent win, Liverpool to win and Mo Salah to score, you won't go too wrong with on the day. This has been your Fulham versus Liverpool preview, and like I said, we will be back tomorrow with a match reaction, probably around 3 o'clock. We'll post it up, keep an eye on the channel and stuff like that. All I can ask you all is, if you are watching this content, if you are watching the episodes every day, just drop a subscribe, drop a like on all the videos. It really helps us out on our path to getting to where we want to get to and stuff like that. We're going to be bringing you tons of fabulous content over the next 9 months or whatever it is. It's going to be absolutely electric. It's going to be a great season. Some brilliant players have come in. Some of the teams have done some brilliant business and stuff like that. It's going to be an absolutely electric season. And be patient, Reds. We're going to have some ups and we're going to have some downs, but we're going to have to hit them head on, and we're going to have to operate at a level where we should operate. And that all starts tomorrow at 12:30 at Craven Cottage. I hope we have a fabulous season. I'd like to thank everyone in the comments. If you could just drop a like and subscribe before you leave, if you haven't already, I'd really appreciate it. And we will be back tomorrow, probably around 3 o'clock, with a match reaction. Hopefully a really good positive result, and that Darwin Nunes gets off the mark. Till next time, Reds, appreciate you tuning in.